Now tell me, what are the names of the four rivers found in Eden?
The answer is River Pishon, River Gihon, River Tigris, and River Euphrates, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 2, beginning from verse 10 to 14.
Who was the first man that saw a lion with his bare hands?
The answer is Samson the Great, as recorded in the book of Judges chapter 14, verse 6.
What is the name of Moses' grandson through Gershom?
The answer is written in the book of Judges chapter 18, beginning from verse 30. Jonathan.
Which of the rivers in Eden is pure gold, precious stone, and rare perfume found?
The answer is River Pishon. Go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 12. River Pishon.
Who was the prophet that his corpse brought a dead man back to life?
The answer is written in the book of 2 Kings chapter 13, beginning from verse 21. Elisha, pronounced Elisha. The answer is Prophet Elisha. 2 Kings chapter 13, beginning from verse 21.
What was the number of people that followed Jacob to Egypt?
The answer is found in the book of Genesis chapter 46, beginning from verse 27. 70 people followed Jacob to the land of Egypt.
Who is the strongest man in the Bible?
The answer is written in the book of Judges chapter 13, beginning from verse 16. Samson.
How old was Adam when Seth was born?
The answer is 130 years. Adam was 130 years when Seth was born. Genesis chapter 5, beginning from verse 3.
What are the names of Lamech's two wives?
The names of Lamech's two wives: 1. Ada, spelled A-D-A-H, and Zillah, spelled Z-I-L-L-A-H, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 4, beginning from verse 19.
What did God create on the fifth day?
God created great sea monster, water creatures, and birds on the fifth day, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 1, beginning from verse 21 to 23.
How old was Adam when Seth was born?
The answer is 130 years, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 5, verse 3. Adam was 130 years when Seth was born. Genesis chapter 5, verse 3.
After the birth of Seth, how many years did Adam live before his death?
Adam lived 800 years, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 5, beginning from verse 4. The answer is 800 years.
The only man that God spoke with face to face was?
The answer is Moses. Moses, as recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 33, beginning from verse 11, and book of Numbers chapter 12, beginning from verse 8.
Who was the father of Methuselah?
The answer is Enoch. The father of Methuselah was Enoch, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 5, verse 21.
Who was referred to as the most humble man in the Bible?
The answer is Moses. The most humble man in the Bible was Moses, Numbers 12:3.
How old was Jesus Christ when he began his work?
The answer is written in the book of Luke chapter 3 verse 23. Jesus the Christ was 30 years old before he began his ministry.
How old was Enoch before he was taken away by God?
The answer is 365 years. Enoch was 365 years before he was taken away by God. Genesis chapter 5 verse 23.
How old was Noah before he had sons?
The answer is 500 years. 500 years. Noah was 500 years before he had sons. Genesis chapter 5 verse 32.
Which of Jacob's wives did he love most?
The answer is Rachel. Rachel. Genesis chapter 29 verse 30.
How old was Abraham when Sarah bore him Isaac?
Abraham was 100 years, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 21 verse 5, before Sarah gave him a son called Isaac. Genesis 21:5.
Jacob's wife, Rachel, died after giving birth to...
Jacob's wife, Rachel, died after giving birth to Benjamin, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 35, beginning from verse 18 to 19.
How long did David rule Israel?
King David of Israel ruled the people of Israel 40 years. 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 11.
Who was the high priest with an unknown history that disappeared mysteriously?
The answer is Melchizedek. Melchizedek. It is written in the book of Hebrews chapter 7 verse 3. The high priest with unknown history that disappeared mysteriously in the Bible was Melchizedek. Hebrews 7:3.
Who was the father of Lot?
The answer is Haran. Haran, spelled H-A-R-A-N. Haran, the father of Lot, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 11, beginning from verse 29 to 31.
The only apostle who walked on the sea was...
The only apostle recorded in the book of Matthew chapter 14, beginning from verse 21, that walked on the sea with Jesus was Apostle Peter.
The woman whose beauty destroyed two judges was...
The answer is Susanna. Susanna, as written in the book of Susanna. You can also find this quotation in Good News Bible or New Jerusalem Bible.
Who was the old female prophet that spoke about Jesus Christ during his presentation?
The answer is Anna. Anna. It is recorded in the book of Luke chapter 2, beginning from verse 36 to 37. The only old female prophet that spoke about Jesus during his presentation was Anna.
How old was Anna the prophet when she prophesied about Jesus Christ?
The answer is 84 years. She was 84 years when she prophesied about Jesus Christ.
Who was referred to as the King of Salem?
The answer is written in the book of Genesis chapter 14, beginning from verse 18. The king of Salem was King Melchizedek. Genesis 14:18.
Can you tell me the woman that disgraced Nebuchadnezzar's whole kingdom by defeating his commander?
As recorded in the book of Judith, chapter 14, beginning from verse 18, was Judith.
How many concubines did Solomon have?
The answer is 300 concubines, as recorded in the book of 1 Kings chapter 11 verse 13.
Who was the first woman that killed a commander?
The answer is written in the book of Judith chapter 12 verse 15. The answer is Judith.
The first man to be thrown into a lion's den was...
The answer is written in the book of Daniel chapter 5 verse 16. The first man that was thrown into a lion's den was Daniel.
What is the meaning of the word Mara?
The meaning of the word Mara is bitter water. Bitter water, as recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 15 verse 23.
Can you remember the name of Moses' wife?
Yes, I can remember. It is recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 2 beginning from verse 21 and 18 verse 2. The name of Moses' wife is Zipporah.
The first man that wrestled with God was...
Yes. Genesis chapter 32, 24 to 26 had the story that Jacob was the first man that wrestled with God face to face, physically, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 32 beginning from verse 24 to 26. The answer is Jacob.
How long did the Israelites sojourn in Egypt?
The Israelites sojourned 430 years in the land of Egypt, as recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 12 verse 40.
Who was the man that made God change his mind in the Old Testament?
Yes, the only man that made God change his mind in the Old Testament was Moses. It is recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 32 verse 14.
The last apostle to die, who was the author of the book of Revelation, among other books, was...
The answer is Apostle John. Apostle John. It is written in the book of John chapter 21 verse 24 and Revelation chapter 1 verse 1.
Who was named Israel in the Bible?
Yes. The answer is written in the book of Genesis chapter 32 beginning from verse 28. The man called Jacob, the son of Isaac, was named Israel in the Bible.
The only man who saw the real form of God was...
The only man who saw the real form of God was Moses. Moses demanded of God to show him his real form, and God said to Moses, "If you see my face, you shall die, but I will show you my real form." And God passed, and Moses saw the full form of God. It is written in the book of Numbers chapter 12 beginning from verse 8 and the book of Exodus chapter 33 beginning from verse 18 to 23.
Who was the wife of Abraham that bore him 6 sons?
The answer is Keturah. Keturah. The wife of Abraham that bore him 6 sons was Keturah, recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 25 verse 1 to 2.
Which of Noah's sons saw his father's nakedness?
It is written in the book of Genesis chapter 9 verse 22. Ham is the answer.
What exactly does the name Abraham mean?
The meaning of Abraham is the ancestor of many nations, or the father of many nations. Go to Genesis chapter 17, verse 5.
The name of Moses' first son is...
The answer is Gershon. Gershon, meaning I am a foreigner. Exodus chapter 2, verse 22.
What is the name of Abraham's concubine?
The name of Abraham's concubine, as recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 16, verse 3, was Hagar. Hagar, Hagar. Hagar, Genesis 16:3.
How old was Moses when he died?
Moses was 120 years when he died. Deuteronomy 34:7.
The first man to be taken up to heaven by horses of fire was...
Yes, the first man that was taken up to heaven by horses of